Hello, spooky friends. Welcome back to my channel. I'm Sarah. I'm the Metaphysical Witch. And today I'm going to be doing another little mini deep dive on occult figures. And today we will be discussing Jack Parsons. And if you don't know who he is, Jack Parsons basically gave and created the blueprints for NASA's rocket engineering. And he's very much a pioneer in that area. And he is a very interesting man, so let's talk about him. There's actually a lot of really good videos about him, and there's even a show on Amazon Prime. It's called Lore, and it has a lot of, it's like short stories, and one of them is about him, and obviously it's a little bit dramatized, but it's still a really good watch, so I suggest watching it after you watch this if you enjoyed. Jack Parsons was a pioneer rocket scientist, but he also had a little bit of a dark side. Well, a lot of bit of a dark side, obviously, or else we wouldn't be talking about him. He was very interested in the occult. Jack Parsons, born Marvel Parsons, was an American rocket engineer, a chemist, and a Thelemite occultist. He was born on October 2nd, 1914, making him a Libra. I'm not going to dive too much into the scientific side of his career. I'm mostly going to talk about his interest and involvement in the occult, but I will touch on it a little bit, so just bear with me here. Jack Parsons really created the blueprint for NASA's rocketry, and he invented the first rocket engine to use a cashable composite rocker propellant, and he pioneered the advancement of liquid fuel and solid fuel rockets. So he was a very, very intelligent man. He was born in Los Angeles and was raised by a very wealthy family in Pasadena, California. He was inspired to be a scientist through fiction literature. In 1928, him and a friend would begin amateur rocket experiments in school. But beyond rocketry, Jack Parsons had darker hobbies as well. He was very interested in the occult, and at age 12, it is said that he tried summoning a demon in his bedroom, and he was very convinced that it had worked. And because of that, it scared the crap out of him, and he kind of told himself that he wasn't going to practice magic anymore. And obviously, that was a promise he would not keep, or else we wouldn't be talking about him today. Jack had a bit of a discipline problem, and so in 1929, his mother sent him to a military academy, and there he would blow up a toilet, and so he got expelled. As a devoted science fiction geek, Jack and a school buddy named Edward started launching amateur rockets. They would remove the explosive powder from cherry bombs and other fireworks and use those as fuel. After high school, Jack did attend college, but he dropped out because he couldn't afford the tuition. He also was very self-taught on all of his chemistry knowledge, so he was a self-taught chemist. In 1934, Jack would link up with an associate of his named Frank, and they formed the Caltech-affiliated Guggenheim Aeronautical Laboratory, or better known as the Galsit Rocket Research Group. This group gained funding to work on a project for the U.S. military. In that same year, Parsons would convert to Thelema, which at the time was a new religious movement founded and created by the ever so famous English occultist Aleister Crowley, which I'm sure some of you know who he is, because how couldn't you if you're interested in the occult? Like I said, he would break that promise to his 12-year-old self to never practice occult or magic again, because he obviously joined Thelema. And he was always fascinated with the occult, and this obsession or passion, whatever you want to call it, would essentially take over his life. Jack Parsons was also very well read. He had a literary side. He liked to read poetry and Greek mythology. He was a part of a science fiction club in Southern California, and he met a lot of different people there and networked with a lot of different writers and researchers and most likely occultists. But Jack was very enamored with Mr. Aleister Crowley, and he sort of looked up to him. Parsons was in Thelema. It is said he didn't hide, this part of himself from his colleagues at all. They would sort of laugh at him and make fun of him because they just thought he was, quirky and weird, and they were just like, haha, whatever, that guy's weird. During rocket tests, he would recite a poem of Crowley's called Hymn to Pan. He said that it brought good luck. So yeah, his colleagues really didn't take him seriously, but Jack took his practices very seriously. Parsons saw rocketry and the occult as two sides of the same coin, which is very interesting. A very interesting way to look at it. He said both offered a chance to slip off of the bonds of earth. Rocketry freed your body to roam, while the occult freed your mind and your soul. Now, when I start talking about Thelema, they used Magick, Magick. So they used magic with a K to differentiate it between stage magic and occult magic. Occult magic being like paranormal experiences and interacting with spirits and talking with the dead, alchemy, etc. They also did sex rituals, and apparently in this religion at the time, sex was considered a sacrament, and during Gnostic Mass, worshippers ate a so-called cakes of light, which is basically Eucharist, like bread or made of flour, honey, oil, ash, and it is said that often they would have body fluids like semen or menstrual blood. Yeah, kind of gross, I know. Kind of gross. Jack ate this up. He loved it. He loved Thelema and began trying magic rituals himself. And he interpreted his experiences through the new science of quantum mechanics. So he would often link his spirituality and his scientific mind together. Parsons also tried to recruit a lot of people to this movement, this religion that he was so passionate about. Him and his wife were a part of it. His wife's name is Helen at the time, and they ended up recruiting Helen's half-sister, Betty. They ended up moving into a mansion with several other Thelemic worshippers. They essentially formed a commune, and each person would pay $100 for rent. They moved into a house that sat on Millionaires Row, which is a street that he also grew up on. So he was very excited about that. It was a 3-story American craftsman mansion with high-pitched roofs, palm trees, and a big front lawn. A former Caltech benefactor had actually built that mansion, and it is said that Albert Einstein used to stay there when he went to visit campus. And during this time, Jack Parsons also became acquaintances with Scientology's founder, L. Ron Hubbard. He and Ron went out into the middle of the desert, in the middle of this place where I guess there were power lines that crossed, and it was this very magical place for them. And they had this sort of like vision experience, and during this vision of this red-haired woman, and he gave her the name Lady Babylon, and she was riding a beast in this vision. And from this moment on, he was absolutely convinced that this woman was the woman he was supposed to be with. They were supposed to get married and be in love, and they were going to give birth to the Antichrist. Yeah. Little did he know that when he would get back to the commune, this red-haired woman would be there waiting for him, and her name was Marjorie Cameron, and he fell in love with her obviously him and his wife broke up. They had marital problems while living in the commune. They all kind of like slept around and did their sex ritual things with other worshipers, etc. So it wasn't really like a big deal to them. But when he met this woman, he was just like awestruck. Like he was like, I manifested her. This is Lady Babylon. I manifested her. I had a vision of her. And he was just in love with Marjorie Cameron. And yeah, so she went there to stay, and they were just, living up the Thelema lifestyle, living on this mansion. And here in this commune is where he would practice his religion, and he would display swords and daggers and, I guess altars to the Greek god Pan and all kinds of, occulty stuff. He was just so deep in it. All of these commune members and Thelemites, they would drink, they used a lot of drugs, they had a lot of sex. It was just like very over the top, I guess is one way to describe it. And Jack was all up in this. And from 1946 until 1952, Parsons entered what they called a manic productivity stage. He kind of went off the rails a little bit. He wrote a lot of things. It is said he wrote an autobiography, some occult texts, a personal essay condemning authoritarianism, corruption, things like that. None of them ever got published, though. And on June 17th, while filling a rush order for film explosives in his home laboratory, Jack would essentially blow up his basement. It was a fatal explosion, and it gutted the lower half of his home, of the building, and he died from this. He suffered mortal wounds, and he was pronounced dead 37 minutes after the explosion. And it's kind of sad because this was only a day before him and Marjorie, his Lady Babylon, I guess they had planned to move to Mexico, and this was just the day before. And essentially what cost Parsons his life was the same thing that had given him his career, his unrestrained will. There is a ton of information out there on him. This was just a little mini deep dive, okay? There's a lot of information you could find about him and the people he associated with, how he was friends with Scientology's founder, and how him and Aleister Crowley interacted, and their friendship and association and all of that. So, like I said, you could find so much information on him. He's a very, very interesting and just fascinating person. And it is really kind of sad because I don't think that scientists really want to talk about him or give him the notoriety that I guess he deserves with, according to his work, with his work, because he was so, out there, and he was this practicing occultist, and he loved magic, and he loved summoning demons and sex rituals and learning about the occult and everything like that. So it is kind of sad that, more people don't refer to him as the pioneer that he really was when it comes to his work. Instead, they refer to him as this crazy, hinged man who was a Satanist, But I think he is fascinating. He was obviously very smart, and I enjoyed learning about him, and I hope you did too. So thank you for listening to this mini deep dive about Mr. Jack Parsons and how fascinating and interesting his life was. He died very young, which is sad. But I feel like he kind of died doing what he loved and what he was passionate about. And he was just unapologetically him, even if he went off the rails a little bit. You know what I mean? You got to give it to the guy. He just fucking did his thing and didn't care what his associates had to say about him. None of that. Thank you for watching, friends. I got a new mic, so hopefully my sound is a little bit better. And I am going to start to upload on Thursdays. I'm going to do more deep dives into occult history or occult or spiritual figures. I'm really wanting to do a video on Dolores Cannon because I think she's fascinating, and I would love to talk about her with y'all. So thank you for watching, and I hope you have a wonderful rest of the week. Bye.